We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warm and friendly hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by a good friend of ours, Chris Cichon over at WBAL in Baltimore. We're going to be taking a look at the American League playoff picture, how murky that is, the outlook of the Baltimore Orioles, and dive just a little bit in general at the National League picture as well. In the final segment, I'm going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this baseball Sunday as we touch them all. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one or two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters the name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Well, I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today. We had a great day of baseball on Saturday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Pittsburgh Pirates walked the plank to a nice 7-1 win over the Washington Nationals. For the Buccos, they got a pretty solid start out of Braxton Ashcraft. Gives up a home run in 5 2/3 innings. James Goodwood for his 23rd home run of the campaign. Carson Palmquist ended up being the opener for Zach Littell. He gives up 4 runs in his inning of work. Littell was solid. 1 run allowed in 6 innings, but boy, that was not great. And then you had 2 runs given up over the course of 2 innings by one Mr. Riley Cornelio. And then the Pirates bullpen, they were able to do their part as you had an out of the bullpen scoreless from Mason Montgomery. And then Yohan Ramirez was not messed with. He, Dennis Santana, and Cam Sanders were all able to give you a scoreless setting. For the Walker, Texas Rangers, they get blanked by the Detroit Tigers 3-0. The final. Captain Jack Flaherty was captain terrific. He goes 5 2/3 innings scoreless. From there, Tyler Holton and out of the bullpen scoreless. Kadir Montero, anything but Montero bowl. 3 shutout innings. Cal Quantrill allows 3 runs, 2 of which were earned in his 5 innings of work as Riley Green, 12th home run on the campaign. From there, Tyler Alexander, a scoreless inning, 2 scoreless innings out of the Peoples, which, that's a great name by the way, Benjamin Peoples, who was making his MLB debut, and then you were able to get a scoreless inning out of Chris Martin, but too little too late out there for the Seattle Mariners. They blanked the Toronto Blue Jays, but you get an over because Shane Bieber was terrible. 11-0 the final as Shane Bieber had a fever for giving up runs, 7 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings as Randy Arozarena, 9th home run of the campaign, and then Dom Ganzone, his 14th. Cal Raleigh, a little bit later on off of Tommy Nance, he gets his 9th home run on the campaign. For Nance, he gets out of the bullpen, but he gives up that home run along the way. Alex Macco, 3 runs allowed in 1 2/3 innings. Raymond Fisher and position player Miles Straw both give you a scoreless inning, and then Logan Gilbert, 7 1/3 innings shutout, only gives up 1 hit. Cole Wilcox from there, he's able to give you 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, so not great for the Blue Jays. This was great for the Twins, though. 11-4, they take down the New York Yankees. For the Yankees, it was the MLB debut start of Brandon Beck. I believe that he had made a few appearances out of the bullpen. 5 runs allowed in 3 2/3 innings. This was just not great, to say the least, as for the Twins, they would get 6 total home runs in this game. Josh Bell will go deep twice, 12th and 13th home runs of the campaign. Alex Jackson, the backup catcher, he gets his first home run of the campaign. Trevor Larnach, his 6th. Cody Clemens, his 16th, and Lucas Shaw, 4th home run of the season as the Yankees had Tim Hill give up his home run in his inning work. Jake Bird, he gives a bird with a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Brian Yarbrough, 1 2/3 innings, he allows 1 of those home runs, 1 run in total. Camilo Duvall, 4 unearned runs given up in his inning work, and Brad Hedrick, a scoreless inning. Zabby Matthews, he gives up 4 runs of himself in the course of 4 2/3 innings. Taken deep by Yasan Dominguez, 4th home run season. Then you had home run number 2 of the campaign for Max Schumann, but the bullpen from there was able to keep them scoreless. Marco Rea, he goes for 2 shutout innings. Taylor Rogers, a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Andrew Morris, a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Travis Adams, he was able to come in for an inning, and he kept it scoreless as well. Being able to get a nice solid win. How about the Chicago White Sox? 3-1. They take down the Cleveland Guardians. For the Guardians, they were able to get a good start in this one as Parker Messick only gives up 1 run, but he went 5 innings as well. From there, Sean Armstrong, Hunter Gaddis, they're both able to supply a scoreless inning. Tim Aaron, he gives up a home run to Colson Montgomery, 22nd home run of the campaign. Matt Festa, he has a Fiesta, he gives you a scoreless inning, and Sean Burke, boy, was he good. 11 punch-outs, gives up a solo home run in this one to Austin Hedges. Third home run on the campaign, that's all that he gives up in 6 innings. Brandon Knizer, 2 shutout innings, and then Grant Taylor. He was able to supply the goods, and he was able to give a scoreless inning as well. Now, for the San Francisco Giants, they get the job done. This by a count of 6-4 against the Colorado Rockies, as for the Giants, they got a lot of scoring early on, and then things died down very much as these guys got settled in. For Robbie Ray, he was not really Robbie Boo, but he wasn't amazing himself. Gives up 3 runs over the course of 6 innings. Taken deep by Cole Carrick, his 4th home run of the campaign. From there, you were able to have Sam Entages give you a scoreless inning, Dylan Smith a scoreless inning, Caleb Killian gives up a run in an inning, and Sean Sullivan gives up all 6 runs in 5 2/3 innings. Was taken deep in this one as it was home run number 7 of the season for Bryce Eldridge. From there, Juan Mejia, 4 outside the bullpen squirrels, Antonio Senzatella, and Jordan Romano. Yes, that Jordan Romano. They were both able to score a scoreless inning as well. For the LA Dodgers, 3-0 winners. They were able to take down the Slam Diego Padres as Yoshinobu Yamamoto. 10 punch-outs and 7 shutout innings. Brock and Roll Stewart, Alex Vesia. They both give you a scoreless inning combined. And Will Klein, scoreless inning of his own. Wandy Peralta is the opener. He gives up nothing in his inning of work. Griffin Canning takes the loss, but wasn't bad. 1 run allowed in 4 innings. Kyle Hart gives up a run in 2 innings of work. Freddie Freeman, 15th home run season. Mason Miller from there, he gives up a run in his inning of work as well. You had the Tampa Bay Rays get walked off by the Houston Astros. 10-6, the final for the Astros. You had Hunter Brown give up 7 runs, 6 of which were earned in 4 innings as he was taken deep by Junior Caminero. 26th home run season, 11th in his last 11 games. And then Richie Palacios, 2nd home run of the campaign. Johnny DeLuca, a little bit later on, his 5th home run of the campaign. Christian Javier, he gives up that solo home run in 2 innings of work. Nate Pearson, Brian King, and Josh Hader, though, I'll give you a scoreless inning. Drew Rasmussen, 5 runs allowed in 5 innings. He gives up a pair of bombs. Yordan Alvarez, 28th home run of the season. And then you had Yenier Diaz, his 4th, and then Alvarez, 29th home run of the season. That comes in walk-off fashion against Casey Lugumina. Gives up 2 runs in that inning without getting a single out. Cole Sorzer, he gives up 3 runs in his inning of work. Garrett Clevenger, Craig Kimbrell, they combine for 2 shutout innings, but too little too late out there. For the Boston Red Sox, 8-1 winners. They take down the LA Angels. Sonny Gray had a sunny day. 1 run allowed in 6 innings. You had Josh Lowe get low for his 7th home run of the campaign. Giovanni Morin, Greg Weisert, and Alec Gomba, they're all able to give you a scoreless inning. Meanwhile, Sam Eldejeri, 3 runs allowed on 1 hit. That 1 hit was a home run by Wilson Contreras, 19th home run of the season. Then a little bit later on, you had home run number 1 of the campaign for Rami Gonzalez. He was able to take Sam Natera Jr. deep, 4 runs allowed in 2/3 of an inning. Ryan Zefrian, he goes for 4 outside the bullpen squirrels. Chase Silseth, a scoreless inning, and then Brent Suter, he gives up 1 run over the course of his 2 innings of work. Being able to give a lot of work with not a lot of runs allowed, the Miami Marlins 7-2. They take down the Athletics as Sandy Alcantara, 1 run allowed in 8 innings. Tyler Zuber from there gives up a run in an inning, and Aaron Savali, 4 runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings. He was taken deep by Otto Lopez, 8th home run of the campaign, and then you had Mr. James Mack get his 7th home run of the campaign. A little bit later on, Kyle Sowers, 11th home run season. That comes off of the super-duper long reliever and Cade Morris. He gives up 3 runs over the course of 3 innings. You also had Elvis Alvarado in the building for an out of the bullpen squirrels. Jose Suarez, he was able to give you a scoreless inning of his own. For the Cardinals, they completely blanked the Chicago Cubs. This by a count of 3-0. For the Cardinals, you had Kyle Leahy go 5 shutout innings. George Soriano, Ryan Stank, Jojo Romero, and Riley O'Brien all end a scoreless inning. Shota Managa, 2 runs allowed over the course of 4 2/3 innings. Was cranked deep in this one by J.J. Weatherholt, 13th home run of the campaign. From there, Trent Thornton, Caleb Theobar, they both give you 4 outside the bullpen, with Thornton giving up a run. Tyler Ferguson, a scoreless inning, and Ryan Rolson, a pair of outs out of the bullpen, scoreless as well. For the Atlanta Braves, 14-3. They completely wallop the New York Mets. For Chris Sale, he did not sell in this game. Does give up 3 runs in 5 innings, including a home run to Tyrone Taylor, his 4th home run of the campaign, and also Mark Vientos, his 11th home run season. But Dylan Leap, a scoreless inning. J.R. Ritchie, 3 shutout innings, and Chaminade, 6 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings. This was not great as the Braves had 5 total home runs in this game. As Austin Warren, 4 runs allowed in 2 innings. He gives up a bomb. Joey Gerber, 3 runs allowed in 2/3 inning. He gives up a bomb. And Luis Torrens, that's the backup catcher, gave up a solo home run, as well as that was to Michael Harris, 16th home run of the campaign. Eli White, 4th home run season. Mauricio Dubon, his 9th. Austin Riley, his 9th. And you had Mike Yastrzemski be able to get home run Mambo number 5 of the campaign. And then for the Arizona Diamondbacks, they get a 4-3 win over the Milwaukee Brewers as Brandon Woodruff, not long for this game, 3 runs allowed in 3 2/3 innings, taken deep by Adrian Del Castro, his 5th home run in the campaign. From there, Craig Yoho, 2 2/3 innings, scoreless. Jared Koenig, 5 outs out of the bullpen. He gives up a run, and Merrick, he did his part. 2 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings. Was taken deep by Christian Yelich. A Yelly bomb for his 6th home run of the campaign. Jackson Trio, his 13th. Paul Sewald, shock, surprise, surprise. He gave that up in his inning of work, but still got the save. Jonathan Loaiza, Brady Garcia, Juan Murillo are able to lend a scoreless inning, and you take a look at what we've gotten here in baseball thus far this season. Over rate is 50.6%, 658 overs, 642 unders, and if math serves me correct, we've had ourselves 32 pushes. Meanwhile, favorites on the money line, 55.9%, 723 and 570. Meanwhile, if you look at the run line, 171 of those favorites have failed to cover the run line in over the last 7 days. 56 and 34 is record of favorites on the money line, with all but 11 covering the run line. The over rate, 52.7%, 49 overs, 44 unders, and a push. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's where we're getting trend-wise. Coming next, let's chat it up with our good friend Chris Cichon of WBAL Baltimore, right here on the Baseball Betting Show. Myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Chris Cichon aboard. He does such great work over at WBAL in Baltimore, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. And if it's happening out there in Baltimore, he's got you covered, whether that be the Ravens, the Orioles, all the news that we're seeing with an election year, and so much more. And you're able to follow him on the old Twitter /X at The Big Cheese Show. That is CHEE on Chi before show. And Chris, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Hey, Greg. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, election season kind of slowing down here a little bit as the primaries are over, so we are full steam ahead with the Orioles, who entered the weekend with some momentum, topping the Cincinnati Reds, blanking them 3-0. Trevor Rogers rounding into form after he was going through quite a rough stretch. It's certainly the mood around here typically is, let's not get too excited about this team, because they have let fans down by going on a couple of different losing streaks and whatnot after beating teams like the Dodgers. So looking for some consistency, Greg, but love talking baseball with you as always, my friend. Thanks for having me on.
No doubt about it. They are looking for some consistency, just like you always provide great analysis on this podcast. But that's it. How do you take a look at this Orioles outlook right now? Because still below 500, still out of a playoff spot as we do this, but I feel like it's the same conversation that we had the last time you were on. The hope that the Orioles have is that this American League is so bad it's not even funny, and even just 1 or 2 good weeks can put them right back into a playoff spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Entering Saturday, they were only 4 games out of an AL wildcard spot, and you've got Kyle Bradish, who's going to be going into the start on this Sunday. He's somebody who's done a pretty good job, albeit he did struggle with some command in his last start. But he's somebody who has been consistent by and large for the most part, helping this team stay at least in contention, not totally falling out of it. But, you know, prior to that start, in his last one against the Nationals, where they lost that game, that was a tough series for the Orioles, too, because you would have liked to have seen them win that one, even though the Nationals are doing a pretty good job this year. But still, Bradish, going into that start, he had allowed just 1 run in 15 2/3 innings, but wasn't very much in control of his pitches, was a bit wild in that last start. And that's what we saw out of Trevor Rogers on Friday night. It seemed like he constantly had guys on, and which he basically did in the first few innings, getting multiple guys on, but he was able to get out of jams and shut down this Reds team, and he had himself a shutout, not through the entirety of 9 innings, but a scoreless appearance, I should say. He's had 2 out of his last 3 starts, so you like seeing that out of Trevor Rogers. Losing Ryan Helsley was certainly not something that this team needed at the moment when you're dealing with a bullpen that isn't the strongest to begin with. Andrew Kittredge, I thought, was going to be the choice to get saves, and we'll see if that ends up being the case. But Tyler Wells got his first save since 2023 on Friday night, so maybe he is the better option there, because Kittredge has been a bit of a disappointment since coming over this way. So, yeah, this is an Orioles team. You know, they're going to be playing in Great American Small Park, so you certainly have your opportunities to score some runs, hit some home runs. It's not a team that has a plethora of power outside of Pete Alonso. Gunnar Henderson has disappointed this year, no doubt about it, but somebody who is going to bring, you would hope, consistency back to this lineup at some point. Batting at the top of the order has been an interesting choice. Manager Craig Alberman has said initially, it was because he wanted the distance of Henderson running back to the dugout to be shorter, and that's why he flip-flopped with Taylor Ward. And Craig Albernaz has said a couple of things, the manager here, that has kind of made you scratch your head recently, talking about how the players, there's too much outside noise that they're paying attention to. I mean, that's your job as the manager to get them to block that out and focus. So, he's gotten some development out of some of the younger players here. But ultimately, this is an Orioles team where they're not going to win the division because the Tampa Bay Rays are so good, and the Yankees are struggling at the moment, we've been seeing, but they're going to be hanging above them too. The Blue Jays, do they sort of make a surge here as we're into July? We'll see. And the Red Sox have been playing better baseball, so it doesn't get easy for the Orioles here. I know that they're going to be hosting the Royals coming up next weekend. That's an opportunity perhaps for them to win a weekend series and, stay in contention as we get closer to the All-Star break and the trade deadline.
Yep, no question about it. That is going to be a big series for them, as Chris Cichon, who does such great work over at WBAL, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And when you take a look at this American League, is there one or two teams outside the Rays or the Yankees that you feel good about their chances about being able to rise up a little bit? Because outside those two teams, it's all sorts of inconsistency. It's all sorts of mediocre teams. And I keep saying it, one of these teams has to win some games.
Yeah, well, looking at the slate for Sunday, I certainly like what I've been seeing out of the Tampa Bay Rays. Obviously, we talked about them being a World Series contender, and I certainly think they are. Even guys like Nick Martinez pitching on Friday were able to limit damage. And, they're not playing a slouch in the Astros, and they had some damage a couple of times. I know Yordan Alvarez went deep. The Astros, I don't think, are going to be a team that's there when it's all said and done competing for an American League pennant. They have some nice pieces. Alvarez, Spencer Arrighetti had himself a nice bounce-back start on Friday after he had been struggling a little bit, but I don't think that they've got enough staying power when it comes to their offense. And now Jeremy Pena just went on the injured list. So, Jose Altuve can still produce, but he's not the same player. They don't have the guys like Bregman in years past. Carlos Correa, it's not the same Astros team. No more Framber Valdez anymore, but it's not like that's totally working out in Detroit either. Another team that I certainly like, and it's weird to see them only, hovering around that 500 mark, is the Seattle Mariners. Ultimately, this is a lineup that has guys that have power. You'd like to see Randy Arozarena not challenging twice ABS and being wrong twice in the first inning, blowing those calls. So got to get better as far as stuff like that is concerned. And they have issues when it comes to guys like Josh Naylor. When he was with Cleveland, I know he was like a perennial 300 guy, Julio Rodriguez. So yeah, if these guys are all hitting at a consistent basis, they are a team that I think can be reckoned with. And you're going to have to be having the discussions because, Logan Gilbert, Emerson Hancock, these are guys that have been just so strong for this team pitching wise. And then, if I'm thinking about another team in the American League, we'll see the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Chicago White Sox. That's going to be a fun one Sunday afternoon. And what we do have, which is a nice thing for those of us who don't have the MLB.TV, I do have it, thankfully, but Peacock is going to be streaming all of these games. So if you've got Peacock, you can watch all these games. It's a nice little Sunday edition. I'm going to be looking forward to watching this Guardians team because they're hanging in there without Jose Ramirez, getting it done with their pitching. Tanner Bybee is a guy that I targeted against last time and tried to take an over on him because I was seeing some things, I guess, in some of his prior starts, and he had taken on the White Sox and did a good job. But yeah, Texas is a good team too. But Bybee did a nice job pitching, as did Jacob deGrom in that matchup. I believe you were on the Texas Rangers in that one, which was the right call on that one. But yeah, Cleveland in this matchup, they're a roster that's got guys like Chase DeLauter, young guy, 24 years old, big guy in the outfield there. They just seem to find, Kyle Manzardo. I'm speaking of their Bybee's last start. Manzardo supported him with a home run, so that is certainly helpful there. And yeah, we'll see how pitchers like this on the Guardians team, Ciccone, Gavin Williams, they're able to get it done on a consistent basis. Stephen Vogt, solid manager there. Yeah, I certainly like what the Guardians are going to be able to do in an American League Central Division, Greg, that, I'm not totally sure what to make of the White Sox. They just were here in Baltimore, took 2 of 3 from the Orioles. they've got some nice pieces, young guys like Sam Antonacci and whatnot, and Miguel Vargas has power. So, Colson Montgomery's been a nice player for them. I certainly don't want to dismiss the White Sox as a potential team that can make some noise if they reach the postseason. Don't think that they're quite ready to make the jump to the World Series, but the White Sox right now getting it done, got young pitchers like Davis Martin too that are able to help them out if they're able to maybe add one more. I know Joe Ryan's name has been mentioned as far as trade deadline talk is concerned. I don't know that they would trade intra-division. There's been more talk about him going to the Yankees, but I think the White Sox probably need one more starting pitcher to really solidify and go for the AL Central Division crown, which seems to be up for grabs at the moment.
Yep, it certainly does seem to be, and just the entire American League seems to be up for grabs as Chris Cichon, who does such great work over at WBAL in Baltimore, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And I do think that it is going to be interesting, the game that you previewed a little bit earlier in Orioles versus Reds, because the Reds have had a lot of struggles themselves, and I do think that it's going to be so fascinating to see what we do get moving forward out of not just the Reds, but also that National League wildcard picture where the Phillies are in full control, but spots number 2 and 3 seem to be up for grabs as well.
Yeah, Phillies have been just a wrecking machine. And, one of the things about Philadelphia, you had a guy like Brandon Marsh, and I remember when they acquired him from the Angels, and at the time they had said, look, Brandon Marsh is still a young player. He still can get some of the things mechanically worked out with his swing and whatnot, and all it's translated to is him being one of the best hitters against left-handers, and he was miserable against them. So he's had quite a turnaround. Plus, he's been delivering in the power department as well, too. So you're seeing that. This Philadelphia team taking on the Royals this weekend. They are certainly a bunch. Kansas City, that's been a disappointment. I like what Kansas City's done as far as building their team is concerned. They've got some of the young hitters, power guys, Caglione, Pasquantino's hurt, but Bobby Witt Jr., things of that sort. You think that they were supposed to be there, but those guys just weren't really getting on base enough. Michael Massey, I know he's been a nice little player for this team in the middle of that lineup there. And then Lane Thomas too at the top of the lineup. I remember him from Washington. So the Royals have some guys. They're dealing with issues with their pitching staff. Chris Bubich being hurt doesn't help them out, I know there. Noah Cameron had himself a nice little stretch, but he kind of came back down to earth. I think his ERA is somewhere in the 4s there. So I'd expect Philadelphia to get it done on Sunday, and absolutely love what they're bringing to the table. And if there's going to be a team that challenges the Dodgers in the National League when it comes to representing that league in the World Series, I think it is going to be Philadelphia. You have talked ad nauseum about Aaron Nola and some of his struggles. He's coming into the matchup with a 6+ ERA, so that is not somebody that I typically like to back. And he was brutal in his last start against the Pittsburgh Pirates after pitching decently, albeit against Washington and the Mets, not two, powerhouses in the National League, to say the least. But yeah, this Phillies team is basically, for the most part, by and large, strong. There's rotation with guys like Wheeler, dominant, Christopher Sanchez. That's just who you want to be anchoring your staff. And they don't have a guy like Nick Castellanos bringing them down when it comes to average and whatnot at the bottom of that lineup. Bryce Harper's bringing the power. Schwarber. Bryson Stott had issues, I know, with average at times, but, I think he's been playing pretty well here as of late, too. So definitely like what Philadelphia's got going on. And I still like Arizona out in the West. I know they had some difficulty with the Tampa Bay Rays, and I know they're entering into Saturday's sub 500. It's really going to be a matter of how does this shake out against the Brewers, one of the best teams in baseball. Obviously, Jacob Mizorowski, NL Cy Young candidate. But the Diamondbacks have some guys that can certainly deliver power. Ketel Marte is having another good year. So I'm keeping an eye on them and thinking that, they could be somebody who sneaks maybe into that NL wildcard conversation, I should say. They've had, some issues with their pitching staff as well, too. I think of Brandon Pfaadt, somebody who a couple of years ago when they were pitching in the World Series and how his stuff was just nasty when they were able to beat the Phillies and go to the World Series. He's sort of fallen off, and sometimes these guys just get a little bit figured out. Another team, too, that I'll mention as kind of a dark horse is Cardinals. I mean, we know that Cubs have been playing some better baseball here as of late, and the Brewers tops of the division, but I still kind of like what the Cardinals have going on. Jordan Walker's had himself a great year. He was somebody that we were wondering what his career is going to kind of look like, but sometimes just early in career it just takes these guys a little bit to get going. Walker was one of those guys. They've got some players like Alec Burleson too. I know he just had 4 RBI on Friday of this past week in the game. He struggled against southpaws a little bit this year, but still a good hitter. And, their pitching staff could use a little bit of help. Matthew Liberatore does have some inconsistencies at times. So the Cardinals are a team, I think, that could also be competing for that wild card spot, and that I like taking a look at more oftentimes than not, because I like some of their hitters that they have on their team, and they're able to produce some runs for sure. So, yeah, those are some of the National League teams that I've got my eye on here. Maybe that can make some noise, but the obvious one's the Dodgers. Watching them the other night against the Padres, come back from down 6-0, getting it done from, and the Dodgers, the Roki Sasaki was terrible in that start. He could not really locate his pitches very well, but the bats just ate them right away. Guys like Freddie Freeman still delivering, Mookie Betts hitting in that cleanup spot, getting it done. Andy Pages has been so good this year. So, yeah, it's going to be the Dodgers representing the National League. But there's still some teams that will make them sweat a little bit like the Blue Jays did in the World Series last year.
Absolutely, and I do think that it's going to be interesting to look at the rest of the National League as Braves and Brewers here clear 2 and 3 teams. But a man that is number one in our hearts, a man that is number one in terms of guest list tonight, that'd be you, Chris. You do such great work over at WBAL Baltimore and so much more. So let the good people at home know it's all in tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
At The Big Cheese Show on X and on Instagram, and I will be off on Monday. Last time the U.S. men's national soccer team had a game, they had me go down to a watch party in Baltimore. Not quite like some of the other cities that are showcasing the big-time crowds for these games, but yes, Baltimore's a soccer town, and so the focus is really going to be there, I'm sure, on Monday as the U.S. team play in Belgium. But my focus here, we're going to BAL, is the news and the Orioles, and hopefully the Orioles can stay in the hunt for the postseason, Greg, so it makes our lives and jobs a little bit more fun around here. But it's always fun joining you, man. Thank you so much.
And it is always fun to have Chris aboard. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and did so once again today. So big thanks, Chris, for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this baseball Sunday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It's always a pleasure to be joined by Chris Cichon, who does such great work over at WBAL in Baltimore. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights. He did so once again today. So big thanks to Chris for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this baseball Sunday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_D1. We're going to be going in the Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first in time order, then the American League games in time order, and the Interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things nice, clean, and easy. How about if we start things off with a game that is presently off the board? This is 901-902. The Mets on the road against the Atlanta Braves as Martin Perez is on the bump for the Braves and Noel McLean for the New York Mets. Mets do find themselves as slim underdogs here, plus 105, minus 125. That number on the Atlanta Braves, 9.5 is the total. The over is minus 115, under is minus 105, and with the Braves, I set them at a minus 127, so I'm going to be willing to lay the minus 125 on the money line. I just really do not trust in this Mets offense. A Mets offense that has been in the bottom 3 in the big leagues in terms of run creation away from home. The Metropolitans have had Juan Soto be really solid. He's been able to give the team 16 plus home runs. He's been able to give you darn near 400 on base, but outside of Juan Soto, where's the power coming from? Pretty much nobody else on the roster who's been able to give you 10 plus home runs this season. You've been able to get some okay production out of the likes of Carson Benjay, along with Bo Bichette, who've been hitting about at 250, but Tyrone Taylor in the outfield, whenever he's played, he's been a big giant disappointment. Marcus Semien has been awful. He's now dealing with injury. Honestly, that's not a bad thing, but Brett Beatty, the understudy, is not any better for the team. Francisco Lindor has been a mess at the plate thus far this season, and recognize that for the Braves. They themselves have fallen off a little bit with their offense. Matt Olson, he's been stuck on 20 home runs for quite some time, and obviously the Ronald Acuna Jr. injury hurts, but Michael Harris, Dom Smith, these two guys hit above a 285. Austin Riley has really been struggling, but Albies, he, along Drake Baldwin, 13 plus home runs. Both of these guys have been able to above a 260, though Baldwin been a little bit shaky since coming off the injury list, and then you've got a Rays bullpen that's just been able to supply the goods to Dylan Lee, Dylan Dodd, Didier Fuentes, along with Racio Iglesias. These are all guys give you a sub 3.25 ERA. When it comes to AJ Minter, Oscar Brisbane, Brooks Raley, so many guys in this Mets bullpen, Luke Weaver, they've been able to give you a sub 3 ERA as well. They've been a top 6 team in terms of bullpen ERA, but still, for the New York Mets, I don't think that they're going to be able to overcome the fact that they just have not been able to supply a lot of offense, even though Martin Perez is a guy that's going to pitch to a lot of contact. For Perez, he is due in for a little bit of regression with that ERA that is currently at a 3.27. The fielding dependent is more in that neighborhood, about a 4.29. Only about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. He has been giving up the 3.5 walks per 9 innings. And then for Nolan McLean, he's been able to do a nice job getting swings and misses. The command has been a little bit all over the place, so 3.4 walks and 10.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, 3.78 ERA, 3.58 fielding dependent. I do think that both starters do enough to be able to net you the under. I'm willing to lay up to a minus 125 on the Braves money line, in with the total of 9.5 in on the under, so my total at 8.8. 903, 904 on the card. The Pirates are going to be on the road facing off against Washington Nationals. And right now, this game is off the board because they were thinking Miles Mikolas might be able to get the start here for the Nationals. That will not be the case, but I've got my handicap. Willing to lay up to a minus 111 with the Nationals, set them as a minus 112 favorite, so plus 113 or more looking at the Pirates, and then set a total of an 8.8. 8.5 or less, going to be in on the over, a 9 or higher to the under for Cade Cavalli. He's been able to put together a really nice season. I feel like he's been pitching much better than that ERA would indicate. Right now for Cade Cavalli, supplying a 3.69 ERA, 3.22 fielding dependent, 10.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's given up just 0.7 home runs per 9 as well. And then on the other side of things, you do have a guy in Bubba Chandler that just had so much issues with regards to command. I do think that the swing and miss stuff is there, and it's going to be able to get better and better moving forward. 8.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 5 walks per 9 innings, 4.62 ERA. Does have a lower 4.49 fielding dependent because he does give up just 0.9 home runs per 9 innings, but now have a Washington Nationals team that is numero uno in terms of run creation. They were held down a little bit yesterday, but still, for this Nationals lineup, you've been able to get really good production out of James Wood, who's been able to give you over a 375 on base. He's above 21 home runs. Additionally, CJ Abrams, he has been able to supply the goods as well. 17 plus home runs, 350 on base, and then someone like a Luis Garcia is up to 16 home runs. He's hitting at 260. Dallin Lyles hitting at 260. You've had a little bit of something out of some of the guys towards the bottom of the lineup as well, like a Curtis Mead, who's been able to give you a double-figure amount of homers. Meanwhile, for the Pirates, they're still dealing with the Oneil Cruz injury, but you've had Ryan O'Hearn give you a double-figure amount of bombs, about a 340 on base. Nick Gonzalez continues at a 300 along. Jake Magnum, Connor Griffin coming off the injury list has been solid, and then you've got someone like a Brian Reynolds over at 390 on base. Both of these bullpens are all sorts of shaky. Dennis Santana is now seeing his ERA go above a 450. You've been able to have Evan Sisk be relatively solid, and Yohan Ramirez has actually been okay recently, but these guys like Isaac Madsen and company have had just rough seasons to say the least, and for the Washington Nationals, they're a bottom 6 team in terms of opening ERA as well. PJ Poulin has been able to give you a sub 350 ERA. You've been able to get some okay mix and match. Brad Lord is a long guy, has been able to do his job as well, but you are looking at a lot of regression for some of these guys like a Richard Dickey Lovelady, who since hit the injured list, the former Pirate, and Justin Lawrence has been awful. You've had Orlando Robalta see his ERA go up quite a bit, but I do think that both of these starters do go out there, give you a nice start. So minus 111 or better looking at the Nationals, plus 113 or better the Pirates, and then 8.5 or less in on the over, 9 or higher the under. 9-5, 9-6 on the card. It is the Cardinals on the road against the Cubs, as Javier Assad is on the bump for the Cubs, and Matthew Liberatore goes for St. Louis. Right now this game is off the board because of the Wrigley Field wind situation, but I do have my handicap. I did set it to where I'm going to be willing to take a 7.5 or less to the over and 8 or higher to the under. As I said, my total is 7.8, and for the Cubs, one way up to minus 135 for them, plus 137 or better in on the Cardinals, as Javier Assad, he's pitching to a ton of contact, but he has still been very effective. For Javier Assad, he's getting fewer than 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's doing a nice job making sure that he's not hurting himself. The home runs per 9 rate and the walks per 9 rate have both been very nice to be able to keep his ERA relatively low. 4.53 ERA, closer to a 5.24 fielding dependent, 2.3 walks per 9 innings. We're starting to see the home run rate balloon a little bit, 1.7 1.7 home runs per 9 innings allowed because he's given up 2+ bombs in each out of his last 3 starts. Meanwhile, for Matthew Liberatore, just has not been the same pitcher that we have seen in the past, as his walks rate is very much up, 5.33 ERA, fielding dependent more around about a 5.11, 3.6 walks, 1.9 home runs per 9 innings. And while this is a St. Louis Cardinals team that has been a top 5 lineup in terms of run creation away from home, wind is going to be blowing in this game, and that's why I did set such a low total over at Wrigley Field. Things get harebrained and crazy with regards to the wind situation, and the Cardinals do have the lesser bullpen, even though for the Cubs, you're dealing with a lot of injuries. Daniel Palencia is currently on the injury list. Hobie Milner among the many, many guys that are on the injury list, but Ryan Rolson, Trent Thornton, these guys have been able to give you sub 350 ERA. Jacob Webb is a guy that I like as well. And for the Cubs, they've had Pete Crow Armstrong do a nice job stepping up for this team. 19 home runs. He's over a 365 on base. You've had Alex Bregman along with Ian Happ leave a lot of men on base, but at the very least for Happ, he's not been Hapless. He's been able to give you 17 home runs this season. Say Suzuki, he's been able to give you about a 356 on base. Anthony Swanson, he had that massive double dip against the Mets, and he had one big game on Wednesday, so he's been able to round into form a little bit. Michael Busch, not a lot of average, but about a 365 on base. Meanwhile, for the St. Louis Cardinals, it's been all about Jordan Walker. Walker has been absolutely tremendous as he's been able to pound the ball, 18 plus home runs. He's been able to hit over a 285. Additionally, you've had Ivan Herrera give you just below a 400 on base for this unit. J.J. Weatherholt has done a nice job moving the line. He's over a 355 on base. Alec Burleson does a good job as well, but it is a bullpen that you have to have your question marks with. Matt Savanson, along with someone like a Ryan Stanek, above a 450 ERA. Jojo Romero has been seeing a little bit of regression, along with some of these guys have been relatively solid throughout the season. Gordon Gaseffo above a 330, but I do think that the wind very much can help out these pitchers, so 7.5 or less in on the over, 8 or higher, the under minus 135 or better. Looking at the Cubs plus 137 or better. The Cardinals 907, 908 on the card. It's the Giants. They're going to be on the road against Colorado Rockies. Tanner Gordon is on the bump for the Rockies. It is currently listed as to be decided for the San Francisco Giants, but the opener is minus 125 on the Giants, plus 105 for the Colorado Rockies, with a total of 13. The over and the under both at minus 110. Right now, I'm thinking it's Tyler Mahle, and if it is indeed Mahle, I'd be willing to lay the minus 125 on the Giants, set them approximately at a minus 126. For Mahle, it's not been that great this far this season, but I still do trust in he and the bullpen pitching of the San Francisco Giants, because the Rockies, they are a bottom 6 team in terms of bullpen ERA. Juan Mejia has not been great, along with Jaden Hill, and Mejia is now on the injury list. Victor Vondick has been posting up an ERA well above a 5 this far this season. Antonio Senzatella, well, he's had a nice season thus far. He's starting to regress a little bit as well. And then when it comes to this very shaky starter in Tanner Gordon, every single time he's gotten a chance at the big league level, it just has not panned out for him. Right now, for our good friend Mr. Gordon, he's supplying a 6.69 ERA, feeling about more around a 4.18, as he's only giving out 1.8 walks per 9 innings, but he's giving up 1.6 home runs per 9 innings. He gets hit relatively hard, and for Tyler Mahle, it really hasn't been a whole heck of a lot better for him. He does have the lower ERA, but he's been giving out a lot of hard contact as well. Right now for Mahle, a 5.67 ERA, fielding dependent more in the neighborhood about a 4.84, 1.6 home runs, 3.9 walks per 9 innings. And for the Giants, they just hit so much better away from home rather than at home. At San Francisco, it's one of the top ballparks in all baseball in terms of suppressing offense, as you've been able to have Rafael Devers and Willie Adames now both be able to give you 15 plus home runs, but for Adames, he's still giving you a sub 285 on base. You've really been able to get a lot of production out of Casey Schmidt. Schmidt has been able to hit above a 275. He's been able to supply this team with 16 plus home runs this season. Then you do have the guys like a Jung-Woo Lee, along with Luis Arias, who both been able to hit above 300, getting back Eloy Ramos is nice. Bryce Eldridge continues to give you a 365 on base, and Hunter Goodman, he is a good man. He has been able to supply that boom, over 27 home runs this season, and he might not hit for the world's greatest average, but Troy Johnson, he hits for above a 300. You've had TJ Romfield, Jake McCarthy, both hit above a 290 as well. Kyle Carroll starts bottom of the fold along Tyler Freeman. These two guys hitting above a 260 as well. I do, though, think that this total is set a little bit too high. 13 is rather ridiculous, even with it being Coors Field with these conditions. So I'm in on the under, set my total 1.8, and I'm willing to lay up to minus 125 on the Giants. 909, 910 on the card. It's Brewers. They're going to be on the road against the Arizona Diamondbacks, as it's going to be Brandon Sproat on the bump for the Brewers, and Eduardo Rodriguez is on the bump for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks are minus 120. Even money on the Brewers total on this game. It is 9. The under is minus 120. The over is even, and I do like this Diamondbacks team on the money line. I did set my total at a 9.7 as well. For the Diamondbacks, we'll be willing to go up to minus 125. As for Eduardo Rodriguez, I do recognize that there's a little bit of regression due in for him, but I just still really don't trust in Brandon Sproat right now. For Sproat, he has been supplying an ERA that is right around about a 5.28, 1.7 home runs, 4.1 walks per 9 innings, while Rodriguez Rodriguez, 2.21 ERA, much higher, 3.98. Fielding dependent, 6.3 strikeouts, 3.4 walks per 9 innings. He is facing off against the Brewers team that is third in the big leagues in terms of run creation. This despite the fact that they really don't hit the deep ball. For the Brewers, they're a bottom 5 team in terms of home runs out of per at-bat basis. Jake Bauers has been able to lead the way and give this team over 13 home runs this far this season, but it's all about moving the line, small ball, getting on bases. He's been a guy that has been able to give you about a 370 on base. William Contreras continues to give you about a 360 on base. Jackson Trio has been able to give you double-figure amount of homers. Andrew Vaughn above a 400 on base. You just go down the list. Even these guys like a Blake Perkins are starting to give you a little bit more. And for the Brewers, this has been a nice mix and match, top 10 bullpen in terms of ERA, as you've had Trevor McGill, Ebner Uribe after shaky starts to the season, really rounded in form, and then the likes of a Grant Anderson, who has been a little bit rough here the last week or so. Aaron Ashby, Jared Koenig, they've been able to do a nice job hold down the fort. And for the years of the Diamondbacks, but I don't necessarily trust in Paul Sewald. You've been able to have these guys like Jonathan Loaizaga, Taylor Clark, even Kevin Ginkel, all be able to give you a sub 350 ERA, but with the Diamondbacks, the one thing that you need is a little bit more power. This has been a unit that has been just in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of run creation and home runs out of at-bat basis. You've had Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte do a really nice job. He's been able to spike 17 home runs. He's hitting above a 265, and then you've been able to get a nice on-base percentage out of Corbin Carroll, 360 on base, 13 home runs, and then from there, it's guys like Geraldo Perdomo give you about a 350 on base. You've had Gabriel Moreno be able to supply about a 370 on base as well, but you've had a lot of guys who have been rough like Lourdes Gurriel. That said, I just think that Brandon Sproat gets destroyed here. I did set my total at a 9.7, like the over. For the Diamondbacks, willing to lay up to minus 124 on the money line, 9-11, 9-12 on the card. It's Padres. They're going to be on the road against the Dodgers, as Emmett Sheehan goes for the Dodgers, JP Sears for the Padres, and this is a game that is presently off the board in most spots, but I've got my handicap. I'd be willing to go on the money line up to about a minus 225 on the Dodgers. I need at least a plus 225 to be able to take a shot on the Padres, and if I'm looking at the Dodgers, I'm looking more at the run line, willing to lay up to a minus 113 there, and set a total of a 9.6, 9.5 or less. I'm going to be in on the over, a 10 or higher to the under. Now for the Padres, this team has been dead stinking last in the big leagues in terms of total run creation, but I do think that they're going to be able to get to Emmett Sheehan a little bit. Now for Emmett Sheehan, he has always been much better with regards to his pitching at home rather than away from home. When he has been on the road, he has been posting up an ERA for his career more than 1.75 points higher than at home. Overall for the season, 5.08 ERA. He's been a little bit better than this, 468 fielding dependent, but is giving up 1.9 home runs per 9 innings, despite the fact that he does get 10 punch outs per 9 innings. And JP Sears at the minor league level made 14 starts, and he posted up an ERA well above a 7. He had one nice start to begin the season, and he got destroyed in his last start. He overall for the season at the big league level, 10 and a third innings in his 2 starts, 9 runs, 8 of which have been earned, and he has given up 4 home runs over the course of 10 and a third innings. So do think that the Dodgers are going to get to him. Now for this LA Dodgers lineup, they've actually been much better away from home rather than at home, about 4.6, 4.7 runs per game at home. Away from home, they are supplying well above 6 runs per game away from home, but Shohei Ohtani, Max Muncy, along with Andy Paz, have all been able to give you 15 plus home runs, and in the case of Ohtani, he's back above a 400 on base. You've been able to get some pretty good production here recently out of Mookie Betts. After he had a really rough start to the season, he's been able to pick it up a little bit more. You've been able to get Teoscar Hernandez off the injured list. He does a solid job moving the line, being able to provide a little bit of power as well. Additionally, Freddie Freeman, he's back up to 14 home runs. He's been able to give this team right around about at 290 with regards to his average. Now for the Padres, they do provide a bullpen that has been pretty rock solid this season. They're back outside the top 5 with regards to ERA because they had that harebrained game against the Chicago Cubs a few days ago, but these guys like Wandy Peralta, Yuki Matsui, Jason Adam, Adrian Morejon have all been able to give you a sub 3 ERA aside from Morejon, but he's been much better as the season has went along. And then additionally, Mason Miller might be the best closer in all baseball, but just not a lot of power here for the Padres, as you've got Manny Machado up to 17 home runs, but hitting below the nose line of Turner. Gavin Sheets, holy Sheets, he gives you 14 home runs, but only about a 235 average. Miguel Andujar, Ty France, these are guys hitting about a 265. Fernando Tatis Jr., 340 on base, but has still at 5 home runs thus far this season. Then the likes of Jake Cronenworth and company at the bottom of the fold, they've given you a big giant nothing burger. Xander Bogaerts, he has really regressed as well. And for the Dodgers, this has been a top 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA. They are dealing with an injury to Blake Treinen, but Jack Dreyer, even though he's regressed a little bit, he's been relatively reliable. Alex Vesia, along with Will Klein, and then Tanner Scott have been able to give you a sub 3 ERA as well. So do think that the Dodgers should be a nice sizable favorite here. I'm willing to lay up to a minus 112 on their run line. I would need at least a plus 228 to take a shot on the Padres on the money line, then 9.5 or less, and on the over 10 or higher, the under. 9:13, 9:14 on the card. It's the Twins. They're going to be on the road against the Yankees as Ryan Weathers looks to weathers the storm for the Yankees, and Joe Ryan is on the bump here for the Twins. Twins are plus 120 to plus 130 underdogs, minus 145 to minus 150. That number on the Yankees, 8.5 is the total. Over and under are both at minus 110, and for the Yankees, I'm willing to lay up to a minus 147 on the money line. For Joe Ryan, he throughout his career has given up over 1.3 home runs per 9 innings when he's been away from home, so that's been a little bit of an issue. And even though the fielding independent numbers are good, and Joe Ryan has been able to get over 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, he has been scuffling a little bit recently. We have seen that ERA go up to a 3.61 as he has now given up at least 3 runs in 3 out of his last 4 starts. Once again, not giving up a lot of walks. 2 walks, 0.9 home runs per 9 innings overall this season. And Ryan Weathers, he does come in having given up a lot of hard contact, to say the least. Right now, for a good friend in Ryan Weathers, he's posting up a 4.08 ERA, mainly because his home runs per 9 rate is up to about 1.6. He has been able to get 10 strikeouts per 9 innings himself, but the fielding dependent right on line with that. Now, for the Yankees, this has been actually a very good bullpen. They do find themselves a top 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA. David Benhar has been able to run to the form, sub 3.25 ERA. You've been able to get really good production on some of these guys like a Brent Hendrick. You've had Fernando Cruz, Paul Blackburn be able to give you a sub 3.35 ERA. And with the Minnesota Twins, this team is just dead second last in terms of bullpen ERA. The likes of Cody Lawyerson, Eric Orze, Andrew Morris. You just go down the list of guys having a 4 ERA or greater. Cody Funderburk, I guess, has been okay along with Andres Gomez, but past that, not a lot of trustworthiness. Now, for the Twins, you do have a lineup that ranks in the top 8 in terms of run creation, and you've been able to get a lot of walloping power from Byron Buxton. Buxton has been able to lead the way. He's been able to give you 25-plus home runs this season, but all of a sudden, Josh Bell is up to 12 home runs. After a really shaky start to the season, he's been able to give you a bit of something. Additionally, you've got the likes of an Alec Martin at a 3.45 on base. Lucas Shaw's all of a sudden up to about a 3.40 on base. Trevor Larnach, he went deep yesterday, 3.85 on base. And for the New York Yankees, this is a group that entered into yesterday in their last 14 games having plated just 37 total runs. They're now really starting to miss Aaron Judge, as got Paul Goldschmidt still giving you about a 3.30 on base. Trent Grisham is actually up to a 3.40 on base, so that's all. Getting him back is big, but these guys like Spencer Jones, Yasan Dominguez, the young guys, Schumann out there in the outfield, they've been hitting at 225 or less. You're getting nothing at the catcher spot as well, but I do think that for the Yankees, Ryan Weathers begins to improve, and I do think that they're going to be able to have Ben Rice, who's been able to give you 23-plus home runs, be able to carry the day along with just hitting a bad Twins bullpen. So I do like the over, so my total at an 8.7. We'll delay up to a minus 147 on the Yankees on the money line. 9:15, 9:16 on the card. It's White Sox. They're going to be on the road against the Guardians, as Sander Bybee is on the bump for the Guardians, and you've got one Mr. Eric Fetty Wap, who's going to be going for the White Sox. White Sox do find themselves as a underdog of plus 135, minus 165 is that number on Cleveland. 8.5 is the total. Over and under both at minus 110. With the Guardians, I did set them at a minus 143. So if we can get down a little bit further, I'd be willing to take a shot on the money line. And if you're looking to lay run half right now with the Guardians, you're only finding that at right around about a plus 125. So we're going to be waiting on a little bit of line movement there. If worse comes to worse, I think I'd rather take a run half with the White Sox at laying like a minus 140, minus 145, rather than laying the Guardians on the money line, just because with Tanner Bybee, even though he's been a better pitcher at home rather than away from home over the last few seasons, he is a guy that has been seeing a little bit of a dip in his swing and miss stuff, and he has been getting hit relatively hard thus far this season. For Tanner Bybee, not a bad ERA, that's a 3.69, but the fielding dependent, more around about a 4.56, 1.5 home runs per 9 innings allowed, 7.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, and for a good friend, Eric Fetty Wap, man, he has really been giving it up thus far this season. He is lucky that his ERA is a 4.41, that fielding independent. We're on a 5.42, 1.6 home runs, 3.7 walks per 9 innings, while getting only 6 punch-outs per 9. It is a relatively solid bullpen, though. Now, Seranthony Dominguez is not necessarily a trustworthy closer, but you've got the likes of A. Brian Hudson, Sean Newcomb, Grant Taylor, who've been able to give you a sub 3.35 ERA, and then Miguel Vargas is in the lineup, has been able to supply 19-plus home runs. He's giving you over a 3.50 on base. Colson Montgomery doesn't have for a lot of average at about a 2.25, but still, he's been able to give you 20-plus home runs. You get that average out of Sam Antonassi, who's done a really solid job. He's been able to give you a batting average and an on-base percentage has been really solid, over 380 on base. And then likes of a Chief Smeatroth along Tristan Peters, 340 or so with regards to their on base. Meanwhile, for the Guardians, this team, ever since Jose Ramirez has been out of the fold, if you look at the last 26 games, they've been averaging fewer than 3.4 runs per game. You've had Kyle Manzardo give you a double-figure amount of homers, but you just need more on base out of so many of these guys, as Steven Kwan has went straight down the toilet bowl as far this season. You have been able to get a relatively good effort out of Travis Bazzana. He, along with Brian Trujillo giving you over a 340 on base along Chase Slaughter, but I mean, there's been a lot of mix and match guys that just have not been able to perform for this team, though the Guardians, they do have a relatively solid bullpen as Cade Smith has 20 plus saves. He's been able to give you a sub 325 ERA. You've been able to get really good production as well out of someone like Hunter Gaddis recently as well. Tim Aaron is a guy that I like, so it's an interesting circumstance. I do think that you're going to be able to get a little bit more scoring with these two starting pitchers, so I did set my total at 8.6 and 8.5 or less. I'm in on the over, and with the White Sox, like I said, minus 150 or better, I'm willing to take a run at, or if this gets up to about a plus 145 or so, looking at the money line, so we'll back them in one way or another. 917, 918 on the card. It is the Tigers, and they are going to be on the road facing off against the Walker Texas Rangers. We do know that Casey Mize is going to be on the bump for the Tigers. This should be Kumar Rocker. He was expected to start yesterday, but he has been moved back a day, and right now we are only seeing one or two openers out there for this game, and with the Detroit Tigers, you're going to be finding them in that neighborhood about a minus 130. Meanwhile, plus 110 is that number on the Walker Texas Rangers, and we are getting that total right now at an 8. The over and the under are both at minus 110, and I did set my total here at a 7.8, so I'm going to be in on the under. Casey Mize has been able to do a really good job for the Tigers thus far this season, and just flat out has been incredible. He's got an ERA and a fielding dependent that are both below a 275, and has been really good in terms of inducing self-contact. He's giving up only 0.6 home runs, 1.9 walks per 9 innings, while getting 9.4 strikeouts per 9, so love what he's been able to bring to the table, and additionally, it is a Tigers bullpen that's been rounding into a little bit of better form. They are still without Birch Smith, who's on the injured list, along with Brian Herter, but you've been able to get good innings recently out of Tyler Holden, who's back below a 375 ERA. You've been able to have Kyle Finnegan go out there and hold down the fort, and they've needed it because Will Vest has just been an epic disaster for this team, and some of the mix and match guys like Emmanuel De Jesus have not necessarily been amazing, but you got Mize, who's going to be able to give you some great length. Meanwhile, for the Texas Rangers, it is a bullpen that's back outside the top 10 in terms of ERA. They had a really nice start to the season, but you're starting to see some regression, especially with Jacob Junis now hitting the injured list. They're getting back, though, Chris Martin. That should be up a little bit. Cole Winn, he's been posting up over a 450 ERA. Peyton Gray, he's been able to supply an ERA that's hovering right around about a 3, and when it comes to Kumar Rocker, he's always been much better when he has been at home rather than away from home, but for Rocker, it's a guy that is pitching to quite a bit of contact. Right now for Rocker, he's got an ERA that is in the neighborhood about a 383. The fielding dependent, that's more around about a 390, 7.9 strikeouts, 3.5 walks per 9 innings, but throughout his career, he's got an ERA that's above a 6 when he's away from home, and away from home, he has been allowing darn near 2 home runs per 9 innings. Meanwhile, when he's at home, that is sub 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings, and an ERA that is below a 350, so big giant stark difference there. And for the Rangers, we've seen a little bit of a stark difference without Wyatt Langford in the lineup. He has been a guy that has really been able to carry the team, and he's back on the injury list. Corey Seager is up to a double-figure amount of homers, but he's been hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. You've got Chuck Peterson, you've also got Jake Berger, who have both been able to give you 14-plus home runs, and for Peterson, about a 340 on base. Don't call his name, Alejandro Ozuna has been able to give you about a 345 on base. Josh Young, he hits about a 300, and then for the Detroit Tigers, it is one Chet Kevin McGonigal, Riley Green, who have both been able to give you over a 370 on base. Spencer Torkelson, double-figure amount of homers, but hitting just a 215. And then like some Matt Vierling, Zach McKinstry, James Outman, Jake Rogers, so many guys at the bottom of the fold hitting below 220. They did have Wencio Perez, but he got a freak injury himself. So interesting little bit of a circumstance here with the Detroit Tigers. I think when it's all said and done, I should be able to get right around about like a minus 125 or so. That's what I'd be willing to lay. So looking there on the money line, semi total at 7.8. So at an 8+, I'm also going to be in on this total to the under. 969, 970 on the card. It's the Rays. They're going to be on the road against the Houston Astros as Peter Lambert is on the bump for the Astros, and you've got old undecided currently on the bump for the Rays, who are minus 125 favorites on the opener, plus 105 on the Astros. 8.5 is the total. Under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105. And when it comes to this one, I did set the Rays at a plus 121, and I'm thinking that Griffin Jacks is going to get the start. We just don't know if there's going to be an opener for him or not, but this should be Griffin Jacks, and assuming that it is Griffin Jacks, I'm going to be in on the Astros because Peter Lambert has been able to do a pretty rock-solid job this season for the team, and even if it's not Griffin Jacks, if it's like an Ian Seymour or something like that, I would still be in on the Astros on the money line for Lambert. He does have a little bit of a walks issue, but he's been able to do a nice job in terms of inducing some relatively soft contact for Lambert. He's also been up with his swing and miss stuff this season to about 8.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, 1.2 bombs, 3.8 walks per 9 innings, 351 ERA. Fielding independent is a little bit higher, and assuming that this is going to be Griffin Jacks going for the Tampa Bay Rays, he's been supplying an ERA that has been much better when he has been a starter rather than coming out of the bullpen. When he's come out of the bullpen, 8 ERA with 3 home runs allowed per 9 innings. Just not great there. He's allowing less than 1.5 home runs per 9 innings with a sub-3 ERA as a starter overall for the season, 3.45 ERA, but much like Lambert, a higher fielding independent at at about a 461. That's a big reason why I do like that 8.5 to the over. I did set my total at an 8.7, and for the Astros, you've got Yordan Alvarez, who's been incredible, 25 plus home runs, and he's been able to give you over 400 on base. Then you've got Christian Walker, 19 home runs. He does a nice job hitting in that neighborhood about a 240 or so, and then Jose Altuve has been pretty solid in terms of move line, though he's obviously not the guy that he was in the past. You're going to need a little bit more on some of these outfielders. Jake Myers has been a bit of an issue. Cam Smith is giving you a few homers, but still less than 10 as those two guys, Zach Cole, Zach DeZenzo, Bryce Matthews, Joey Luperfido, they're all hitting below a 235. Meanwhile, for the Tampa Bay Rays, you've got Junior Caminero, who's had like 7 home runs in the last 9 games. He has been absolutely incredible. He's up to 25 bombs. He, Jonathan Aranda, Yandy Diaz, I'll give you at least a 370 on base. Ryan Valde, he's been able to give you about a 280 average. You've had Johnny DeLuca hit about a 260, and both of these teams have been struggling with their bullpens. As for the Astros, you've got Josh Hader back, and that's helped out the bullpen a little bit, but still, you've had Brian Abreu supplying an ERA that is well above a 5. I do like what I'm seeing out of some of these mix and match guys. AJ Bluba has been much better as a long guy, but Angel de los Santos continues to struggle. And for the Rays, they've had 2 nice finds in Casey Lugamina along Cam Boozer in a uniform of the Rays. They've been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. You've also had Brian Baker be a nice closer for this team. Kevin Kelly, sub-350 ERA, but Cole Sulzer, Garrett Cole, they're giving up a bunch of runs. So, assuming that we get Jax versus Lambert in on the Astros, we'll be willing to lay up to minus 120 there and do like the over. Somebody told at 8.7. 971, 972 on the card. It is the Toronto Blue Jays on the road against the Seattle Mariners, as Emerson Hancock is on the bum for Seattle, and Trey Savage goes for the Toronto Blue Jays. Blue Jays are an underdog here, as you're going to be getting them between plus 119 to a plus 125. Meanwhile, anywhere between minus 140 to minus 144 is that number on Seattle, and your total, that is a 7.5, under is minus 115. The over is minus 105, and with regards to the Toronto Blue Jays, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on them on the money line at a plus 124 higher for Trey Savage. He has been giving up about 4 walks per 9 innings, but I've liked what I've seen out of him thus far this season. Keeps well in the yards, 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings, 334 ERA, and that dips to a 222 ERA when he has been away from home. And when it comes to Emerson Hancock, he's had himself a relatively solid season. He's posting up a sub-365 ERA. He's only giving up 2 walks per 9 innings, a little bit over 8 strikeouts per 9. So, I mean, it's been good for him and for the Seattle Mariners. This continues to be a top 10 team in terms of bullpen ERA, but you are dealing with a few injuries. Matt Brash is on the injury list, Cooper Criswell as well, but you've been able to have these guys like an Edward Bizardo, Nick Davila, Gabe Spire be able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Meanwhile, for the Blue Jays, Louis Varland and Tyler Rogers have been able to give you a sub-225 ERA. Braden Fisher has been a little bit shaky recently, so that's been a bit of a problem spot for this unit. And when it comes to the Blue Jays, you're going to need to get a little bit more on some of these guys like Tommy Nance and company. Meanwhile, for the Blue Jays, it has been a lineup that has been in the bottom 10 in terms of run creation this year, despite being a top 3 team in terms of field strikeouts on a per at-bat basis. They're hurt by the fact that Jesus Sanchez hits the injury list. So plenty of guys move a line: Vlad Guerrero Jr., Ernie Clement, Yohendrick Pinago, Nathan Lukes. These are all guys hitting above a 265, but in the case of Vlad Guerrero, you just expect more than 4 home runs out of him. And on the other end, for the Seattle Mariners, they've been in the bottom half in terms of run creation. Cal Raleigh hitting below the Beddoes line of 200 without a lot of power has been an issue for this team. You do have the likes of a Luke Raley along with Julio Rodriguez give you 14 plus home runs. They've been able to do a solid job in terms of moving line, but you're still dealing with Brendan Donovan being out with injury. Colt Emerson has been able to give you some homers, but he's been a guy that has been hitting below a 225, so some issues there. Cole Young, he's been able to do a solid job in terms of moving line, reaching base, but with regards to this game, I do think that it's going to be a low-scoring game. I did set my total at 7.1, so I am going to be in on this total to the under, and when it comes to the Blue Jays at a plus 124 or higher, I like that money line. 973, 974 on the card. It is the Red Sox, and they're going to be on the road against the LA Angels, as Ranger Suarez is on the bum for the Red Sox, and Ryan Johnson for the Angels. 8.5 is the total, over and under both at minus 110, minus 150 to minus 160 is that number on Boston, plus 130 to plus 135 is your number on the Halos, and with the Red Sox, I'm willing to lay up to a minus 158 on the money line. If you're looking to lay run half, you're going to be able to get right around about plus 105 on that Red Sox run line, and with this, I would be willing to take a plus 105 or higher, and I'm going to be looking at that run line mainly because I just don't trust in Ryan Johnson whatsoever. He's been a little bit better recently for the Angels, but man, oh man, it has been all sorts of awful for him this far this season. For Ryan Johnson, he's got a fielding independent that's a little bit better than the ERA, so that helps you out a little bit, but man, Ryan Johnson has been giving up well over 2 home runs per 9 innings. The ERA is elevated all the way up to about a 740. He's been giving up 3.3 walks per 9 innings as well. And then for Ranger Suarez, throughout his career, this goes back to his time with the Philadelphia Phillies. He's always had a better road ERA than a home ERA, and he's really been able to round into form. At 294 ERA, the fielding independent is relatively online with that, with a a 272. He's only giving up a half home run per 9 innings, and the swing and miss stuff is up to about 9.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. You've also got an Angels team that has really been able to hit the ball away from him at home. That takes a big giant drop off right now for the Angels. They're averaging in that neighborhood of about 4.8 runs per game away from home, only about 4 runs per game at home. So Mike Trout out of the fold due to injury. That's a big issue for this unit. And with this team, you just don't have a lot of guys that consistently move line and get on base. You've been able to have a nice small sample size out of Jose Siri, Donovan Walton, but I do think that even like a Wade Meckler, these guys are doing for a little bit of regression. The bullpen is absolutely terrible. We'll get to that in a second. Joel some fire to the rain with a double-figure amount of homers, but less than a 320 on base. Ori Soler, he's been able to give you a little bit of pop, but again, on base percentage is not necessarily amazing. And then in the bullpen, you've had these guys like Sammy Natera along Chase Silseth to be relatively solid, but Brent Suter has hit the toilet bowl. They've had to draw out there some of these guys like Alec Manoah, along with Jordan Romano, who have just been nightmares to say the least. Kirby Yates starting to give you some relatively solid innings, but bottom 8 team in terms of bullpen area, the Boston Red Sox are a top 6 team in terms of bullpen area, even with Aroldis Chapman having a few fumbles recently. Sunday Night Baseball was not his fault, but Teran Guerrero has been able to give you sub 350 area. Danny Kluman's had a rough season thus far, but he's coming off the injury list, should be able to improve. Garrett Whitlock has been able to give you a sub 3 ERA. I like what I'm seeing this Red Sox group, and you probably shouldn't go to the bullpen too much with Suarez out there. I just think that Ryan Johnson gives up a ton of runs. So, like the over, some I told it at 8.6, and with the Angels, I set them at a plus 159, plus 105 or better on that run line in on the Red Sox. 975, 976 on the card. It's the Orioles. They're going to be on the road against the Reds. Nick Lodolo on the Lolo goes for the Reds, and Kyle Bradish goes for Baltimore. 9.5 is the total. Over and under both at minus 110 to a minus 116. That number on Cincinnati, minus 102 to a minus 110. That number on Baltimore. And with this total, I did set mine at a 9.4. I'm going to be in on the under with the Orioles. It has been a little bit of a just trials and tribulations sort of season for them, as they've been a offense that has just not been quite the same when they've been away from home rather than at home. For Baltimore, they do find themselves in the top 8 with regards to run creation at home, as right now they're averaging about 4.8 runs per game at home, closer to about 4.3 runs per game away from home. And for Cincinnati, getting back Elly De La Cruz is absolutely massive. He, along with J.J. Bleday, Spencer Steer, cousin Sal Stewart, they've all been able to give you at least 12 home runs thus far this season. They are dealing with a few injuries, but still, this has been a team that's been able to do a nice job, even with having some of these guys like a DJ Frito, Matt McClain at the bottom of the fold, hitting below 225. Now for the Reds, they have been a below average bullpen. They're currently in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of bullpen area, but the veterans are stepping up. Caleb Ferguson, Sam Moll, Brock and Rolberg, TJ Antone, these guys have been able to give you a sub 350 ERA, nice mix of lefties and righties. Emilio Pagan is now coming off the injury list as well, and then for the Orioles, Uncle Rico Garcia and Yunier Cano, don't you know these two guys have been able to give you a sub 3 ERA. Albert Suarez is a relatively reliable long guy, but likes of Anthony Nunez, Andrew Kittredge have not been reliable. Tyler Wells has actually been a nice find for this team. He's a former starter. He's been able to give you a sub 375 ERA, actually a sub 335 ERA. And then when it comes to the lineup of this Orioles bunch, you've got Pete Alonso, who's been able to give you 19 home runs. That on-base percentage is right around about a 340. Gunnar Anderson, 16 home runs, but he's still only giving you about a 300 on base. Leody Taveras, Samuel Basayo, Adley Rushman, these have been guys hitting between about a 248 to a 258. Blaze Alexander has been hitting above a 300, so that's been solid. Still need a little bit more, though. Some of the guys like Dylan Beavers, Tyler O'Neill, Jackson Holiday, Kobe Mayo. So I do think that this is a little bit too high of a total, even though Kyle Bradish has had his walks issues thus far this season. For Bradish, his walks per 9 rate, that's right around about a 4. His ERA is still not awful. It's right in the neighborhood of about a 377. He's getting 9.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. And Nick Lodolo, rough start to the season for him. 5.05 ERA, 7.3 strikeouts, 3.8 walks per 9 innings, but 2 runs or fewer allowed in 3 out of his last 4 starts. So I do like the Reds to be able to get the job done as long as I can get a minus 106 or better, which I should, and I'm in on the under. Semi-total at a 9.4, 977, 978 on the card. It's the Royals. They're going to be playing with the Phillies. Aaron Supernola is on the bump for the Phils, and Luinder Avila goes for the Royals. And the Royals are Royal-size underdogs of plus 115 to a plus 120. Meanwhile, minus 135 is that number on the Phillies. 9.5 is the total. Over is minus 110 to a minus 120. Under is between even a minus 110. I did set the Phillies at a minus 150. I'm going to be willing to lay it with them. Now, I'm not necessarily jazzed up about backing Aaron Nola. He certainly has had his issues all season long, but I do think that there's actually a little bit of positivity to him for Aaron Nola, even though I think that he's a very overrated pitcher. 6.04 ERA. The fielding dependent is more in that neighborhood, about a 5.03. He has been giving up the deep ball. He's up to 2 home runs, 3.1 walks allowed per 9 innings, but Luinder Avila has had some just absolutely atrocious starts as well. Now, that has hiked up the ERA, the 8 spot that he gave up against the Houston Astros. That certainly hurts, but still, it's given up 5.8 walks per 9 innings, 5.40 ERA, 4.65 fielding dependent. Do have to have your concerns there. And This has been a Royals team that all season long has been in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of run creation. Now Jack Caglione is up to 13-plus home runs. He's been hitting above a 250. Carter Jensen has been able to give you a double-figure amount of bombs. He's getting that batting average back up. And then Bobby Witt Jr. obviously is one of the best base stealers in all baseball. 12 home runs, over a 350 on base. You know what you're getting there. But Lane Thomas is hitting below a 215. Salvador Perez has just been terrible this year. 10 home runs and less than a 250 on base. Nick Lofton hasn't really moved the line. And then someone like a Tyler Tolbert towards the bottom of the fold. That's an issue. And Kyle Schwarber, 30 Schwarber bombs entering into the 4th of July. He's been able to give you over a 340 on base. Bryce Harper, 20-plus home runs. Top heavy lineup because after Brandon Marsh, who gives you 15 home runs, you got a lot of guys that have been struggling a little bit. Trey Turner and Bryson Stott dying between about a 235 to 245. Both have 10 home runs apiece. But in the outfield in general, with Adolis Garcia now being out, you've been instead having Gabriel Raconis, who's been hitting below the Mendoza line himself. These guys at the catcher spot just have not been able to give you too much whatsoever. And for the Phillies, this is a top-heavy bullpen as well, as you've got Orion Kirkering, Yohan Duran, who've been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, and in the case of Duran, a sub-2 ERA. But then it's a little bit testy. Chase Shogurt has been acting up. Tim Meza, I like what he's providing, but Jonathan Bullen has not been great. And for the Royals, this continues to be a bottom 6 team. In terms of bullpen ERA, Carlos Estevez being on the fold has just really hurt this team. Daniel Lynch has been able to give you a sub-350 ERA. John Schreiber has been giving you some okay innings as well, but Alex Lang well above a 4 ERA. Matt Strom as well. Lucas Erceg. These guys have been a nightmare, so I like the Phillies to get the job done. Set them at a -150, and I'm in on the under. So by total 9.4. Wrap things up with 979, 980 on the card. It's the Marlins. They're going to be on the road against the Athletics as Gage Jump is on the bump for the Athletics, and Yuri Perez goes for Miami. Miami is a underdog here between +104 to a +110, -125 to a -130. That number on the Athletics, 9.5 is the total. Over is -110 to a -120. Under is between even and -110. I do like the over. I did sell my total at 10.3 for Yuri Perez. He's looked very solid since coming off the injury list. That said, you have to be very mindful of his career home and road splits. And Yuri Perez is doing a nice job in terms of giving you some swing and miss stuff, but Yuri Perez is also doing a bad job of not giving up walks. It's right now 421 ERA, 478 fielding dependent, 1.6 home runs, 4 walks per 9 innings, and this is just not a split of this season, but this is a career split for him home and road. When he has been at home, he has been a very dominant pitcher, as he has a 268 ERA, giving up less than 1 home run per 9 innings. His strikeout per 9 rate is over 10. Meanwhile, away from him, 499 ERA, and he's giving up darn near 2 home runs per 9 innings. And for Gage Jump, he has been really good since getting called up to the big league level. He's been able to give you 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, half a home run, 2.3 walks per 9 innings. While he's got a 293 ERA, the fielding dependence more around about a 266. You absolutely love what he is doing there. And with this Athletics bullpen, they're going to need to be a little bit better moving forward. As Elvis Alvarado, he's in the building, along with Luis Medina, Jose Suarez, Mark Leiter Jr., Scott Barlow. So many guys. They're giving you over a 4 ERA. Justin Cerner has been a little bit hot and cold as well. And with this Miami Marlins bullpen, they are the better one in this ordeal. You've been able to have likes of John King, Michael Peterson, great name, Lake Bakar, give you a sub-325 ERA, but now they do have Anthony Bender on the injured list. Pete Fairbanks has happened himself, and with this Marlins team, it's pretty much death by a million cuts. You really don't have anyone other than Liam Hicks give you a double-figure amount of homers, 13 home runs out of him thus far this season. Now, you do have Owen Casey up to 11, but still for Casey, less than a 300 on base. You expect a little bit more there. Some of these mix-and-match guys like Alberto Hernandez, Connor Norby, Jacob Marcy, hitting at 220 or lower, that's an issue, but Marcy along Xavier Edwards, Otto Lopez, they've all been able to give you at least 13 stolen bases along with Esterio Ruiz. Ruiz is giving you a 340 on base. Edwards hitting about a 300. Otto Lopez to be able to about a 340 as well, but Perez on the road is a concern. I'm willing to lay up to a -130 on the Athletics on the money line, and I do like this total to the over as well at a 10.3, especially with the Athletics. Even though they've got Tyler Soderstrom out of the fold, having a pair of guys, Nick Kurtz, Shea Langoliers, who both have been able to bang out at least 19 home runs this far this season. You do have guys that are moving the line, like a Henry Bolte, who's been able to turn near 300 this far this season. They're getting Zach Koloff off the injury list, Carlos Cortez as well, who's been able to give you over 350 on base. So in on that over, and the Athletics on the money line, and that'll wrap things up for the Sunday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the Beast Family Podcast. A big thanks to our guy Chris Cichon over at WBAL in Baltimore. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, whatever you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, large CM, they mean does not matter. So as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like here on this podcast via that 5-star review. I'm with you guys every single day, give you picks and analysis on every game every day, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.